After 15 years together, my wife said, "I want to have a child, and my ex will be the father while you provide financial support." I said, "I understand." When her lawyer demanded 50% of the assets, I handed them this. My wife of 15 years and I were celebrating at a restaurant I could barely afford, a place with linen tablecloths and candles that flickered across her smiling face. I thought we were celebrating us. I was wrong. She put her wine glass down, her smile never wavering, and said, "David, I've spoken with Mark. I'm having my tubal ligation reversed next month. We're going to try for a baby." Mark, her ex. Before I could even process the name, she delivered the final blow, her voice dripping with casual entitlement. "Don't look so shocked. You'll be a wonderful stepfather. Our house is plenty big enough. It will be perfect." I just stared at her, the entire world narrowing to the space between us, the noise of the restaurant fading to a dull hum. "If that's what makes you happy, Jennifer," I said, my voice unnervingly calm, "follow your heart." 15 years. You don't just spend 15 years with someone. You build a life. It's an architecture project of the soul. You lay a foundation of inside jokes and shared struggles, erect walls of trust, and furnish the rooms with memories. Every decision, every sacrifice is a brick carefully placed, believing you're both looking at the same blueprint. Our blueprint was sketched out on a cocktail napkin on our 2nd anniversary. I still have it somewhere. It was simple, logical. A 5-year plan that became our life's creed. Phase 1. Obliterate her student loan debt. I took on extra projects, we cut back on luxuries. I saw it as freeing her so we could be free together. We did it in 4 years. Phase 2. Save for a down payment. We poured every spare dollar into a high-yield savings account. I tracked it on a spreadsheet, watching the numbers climb, a testament to our shared discipline. We hit our goal 18 months ahead of schedule. Phase 3. Buy the house. The one with the big backyard and the old oak tree she loved. Phase 4. Enjoy. No kids. That was her rule from the beginning. She wanted a life of travel, of spontaneity, of art galleries and late-night dinners. She didn't want to be tied down. And I loved her, so I adopted her dream as my own. I planned our trips, researched boutique hotels, and imagined us growing old in a house filled with art, not toys. I was happy with that plan. I truly was. Because it was our plan. Looking back now, the cracks in the foundation were there all along. I was just too busy laying bricks to notice. The red flags were just flags. Little pennants fluttering in the breeze that I mistook for celebration. There were the little comments tossed out casually over dinner. "Don't you ever feel like our life is a little too quiet?" Or, "Mark just got back from a spontaneous trip to Bali." Can you imagine Mark? It was always Mark. The ghost of a life she could have had. The tech entrepreneur ex-boyfriend who represented everything I wasn't: reckless, flashy, unpredictable. I was the solid ground. He was the lightning storm on the horizon she still admired. She'd scroll through his Instagram showing me pictures of his life. "Look at that, he leased a Porsche for the weekend just because." I'd smile and say, "That's nice, honey," while thinking about how our paid-off cars and robust retirement accounts were what gave us real freedom. I thought she understood that. I thought she valued it. I see now she didn't value it. She just took it for granted. The stability I provided wasn't a shared achievement to her. It was just the safety net that allowed her to dream of falling for someone else. The worst part was the house. I'm an architect. I don't just see buildings. I see homes. I see the flow of life within the walls. When we bought our place, I spent weeks just walking through the empty rooms, imagining our future. 3 months ago, we stood in the smallest bedroom, the one with the best morning light. I had just finished painting it a soft, neutral yellow. Not because we were expecting, but because it felt like a room of possibility. I remember turning to her, smelling the fresh paint, and saying, 2 years from now, this room won't be so quiet. I was thinking of it as a potential art studio for her, or a library for us, a room for our future. She smiled a bright, brilliant smile that I now realize was pure performance. She let me stand there dreaming of a future she had already secretly demolished. She watched me build a home for a life she had no intention of living. That wasn't a change of heart. That was a lie of architectural proportions. She didn't just break a promise. She invalidated the entire blueprint of our life and let me keep building anyway. Jennifer was radiant for the entire next month. It was the kind of glow that doesn't come from happiness, but from victory. She believed she had executed the perfect coup, securing her future by leveraging my past. She floated through the house, humming, making plans on the phone, in a voice that was just a little too loud, ensuring I could hear. There were calls with Mark filled with giggles and whispers about baby names. There were calls with her friends where she would recount the story of our anniversary dinner, painting me as this wonderfully evolved modern man. He's being so supportive. I heard her tell her sister, an edge of smug disbelief in her voice. He understands that my happiness is the most important thing. She was right. I did. I just had a very different definition of what her happiness would cost. While she was planning a new life, I was meticulously deconstructing our old one. The morning after that dinner, I didn't feel anger. I felt a strange, cold clarity. The architect in me took over. When a building's foundation is compromised, you don't patch the cracks. You condemn the structure and begin a controlled demolition. Then I called my lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but the top asset protection attorney in the state. I explained the situation calmly, factually, like I was describing a structural engineering problem. He was silent for a moment, then let out a low whistle. "She announced this to you, just like that?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "And I need to build a fortress. Yesterday." Then I went to the bank. I requested copies of every single statement from every account we had ever shared or I had ever owned for the past 15 years. The bank teller looked at me bewildered as the printer churned out a mountain of paper. It was a physical representation of my life's work, a paper trail of every bonus I'd earned, every stock I'd invested, every mortgage payment I had made. Then I met with my lawyer again. We spread the documents across his massive mahogany desk. For 2 days, we traced every dollar. My inheritance from my grandparents, which I had used for the down payment on our first condo. The investment accounts I had started a decade before I even met her. The salary I had earned that was more than double hers for our entire marriage. The numbers didn't lie. They painted a clear, stark picture I had built this financial empire. She had just lived in it. That's when my lawyer introduced me to the cornerstone of my new architecture, the irrevocable trust. He explained it in simple terms. It was a legal vault. Once an asset was placed inside, it no longer belonged to me directly. It belonged to the trust. It was untouchable in a divorce, insulated from any claim she could possibly make. It was the perfect blueprint. Then I began the process of transferring the assets. While Jennifer was on ZocDoc scheduling consultations for her surgery, I was on the phone with financial advisors. I sold stock portfolios. I liquidated mutual funds. I moved vast sums of money, not out of malice, but out of a surgical necessity. The final and most significant step was the house, our dream house. I signed the deed over to the trust. On paper, I was no longer a wealthy man. I was a man of modest means with a small checking account and a car. All the while, I played my part. I was the perfect, supportive husband. I'd come home from a day of dismantling our financial life and ask her how her day was. I listened patiently as she debated the pros and cons of different fertility clinics. I even drove her to one of her pre-op appointments, sitting in the waiting room, nodding and smiling, a ghost, haunting the ruins of my own life. She was so consumed by her own triumphant narrative, so blinded by her entitlement, that she never once saw the wrecking ball she herself had set in motion. She thought I was a pushover. She thought I was weak. She failed to understand the first rule of architecture: the quietest rooms are often the ones with the strongest foundations. And I was building my new foundation in absolute silence. The month that followed was like watching a ballet dancer perform a beautiful, intricate waltz on a stage riddled with trapdoors she couldn't see. Jennifer was a vision of smug satisfaction. She had achieved what she believed to be the ultimate life hack, securing the stability of a provider husband while arranging for the excitement of a new family with her more passionate ex. She had in her mind successfully negotiated the merger of her past and her present into one perfect, well-funded future. Her days were a whirlwind of triumphant preparation. She'd spend hours on the phone with Mark, her voice a low, conspiratorial murmur discussing things I was clearly meant to overhear. No, Mark, a dark cherry wood for the crib seems too heavy. I'm thinking a nice light oak. It will match the floors in the yellow room. The yellow room. My yellow room. The room I had painted with my own hands, envisioning a future for Ascension. Now it was being repurposed in real time, its potential co-opted for a life I was being written out of. Then came the shopping. It started subtly. A new, expensive handbag. Just a little pick-me-up, she'd said, twirling in front of the hall mirror. But soon the deliveries from high-end boutiques and online stores became a daily occurrence. She was using our joint account, the one I had dutifully funded for over a decade, as her personal war chest for this new life. She bought designer maternity clothes, despite not being pregnant yet. She ordered a top-of-the-line Swedish stroller that cost more than my first car. It's best to be prepared, she rationalized, and the wait list for this model is insane. One evening, I came home to find a brand new iMac sitting on the kitchen counter. It's for Mark, she explained without a hint of shame. If he's going to be spending more time here, he'll need a proper workstation for his business. She was furnishing a life with another man using my money in my house and presenting it as a practical necessity. The audacity was almost hypnotic. Her social performance was even more breathtaking. She paraded her story to her friends as a testament to her enlightened relationship. I overheard a phone call she had with her sister, her voice dripping with condescending pity for other less fortunate women. Honestly, I feel sorry for couples who are so traditional. David is just so secure in himself. He knows what we have is real, so he's not threatened by my connection with Mark. It's about my personal fulfillment, you know. She had reframed her profound betrayal as a progressive act of self-care, and my stunned silence as tacit, enthusiastic approval. She was building a narrative where she was the brave pioneer of modern relationships, and I was her loyal, supportive, and slightly dim-witted benefactor. She never once asked how I was feeling. Not really. She'd throw a "You okay, honey?" over her shoulder as she rushed out the door to meet a friend for brunch, but it was a rhetorical question. She didn't want the real answer. The real answer would have shattered the perfect glittering snow globe of her delusion. My quietness was not a mystery to be solved. It was a convenience to be enjoyed. My compliance was the foundation upon which she was building her new castle, and she never thought to check if that foundation was made of solid rock or pure sand. I watched her dance her self-congratulatory waltz, and I let her. I smiled. I nodded. I paid the credit card bills. Every purchase, every boastful phone call, every condescending pat on my arm was just another nail in the coffin she was building for our marriage. She thought she was the star of the show, the lead in her own romantic drama. She had no idea she was just the beautifully dressed final act in a tragedy she had written herself. The curtain was about to fall, and I was the one holding the rope. The morning of the surgery was unnervingly bright. The sun streamed through the bedroom window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air like tiny, indifferent stars. Jennifer was a whirlwind of cheerful energy, packing her overnight bag, double-checking her hospital paperwork. She was practically vibrating with excitement. "Can you believe it, David?" she said, zipping her bag with a flourish. "By this time tomorrow, I'll be on my way to becoming a mother." The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. I just nodded, handing her a bottle of water. I played the part of the dutiful, supportive husband to perfection. I made her tea. I carried her bag to the car. During the drive, she held my hand, her grip tight and proprietary. She talked nonstop about Mark, about their plans, about how wonderful it would be for the baby to have two loving fathers. She was so lost in her fantasy, she didn't notice that my hand in hers was cold as stone, that my knuckles were white from a tension she couldn't see. "You're being so quiet," she noted, turning to me with a little pout. "Are you nervous for me?" "Just thinking," I said. It wasn't a lie. I was thinking about the finality of it all. In the pre-op room, the charade reached its zenith. I helped her into the paper gown. I listened as the nurse went over the post-op instructions. Jennifer looked up at me from the gurney, her eyes wide and shining. "Thank you for this, David," she whispered, as if I were granting her a great gift. "For being so understanding. I promise nothing will change between us. This will only make us stronger." That was her final, most profound lie. She believed it, I think. She believed she could amputate a core part of our shared life, and that the body of our marriage would simply heal around the wound stronger than before. A nurse came to wheel her away. I walked alongside the gurney holding her hand until we reached the large double doors of the operating theater. She looked at me one last time. "I love you," she said. I looked back at her, at the face I had known for 15 years, and I felt nothing but a profound, hollow emptiness. "I'll be here when you wake up," I said. The doors swung shut, the pneumatic hiss sounding like a final, definitive sigh. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the sterile, blank surface of the door. Then I turned and walked away. My footsteps echoed in the quiet, antiseptic hallway. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I felt a clarity so sharp and cold, it was almost painful. It was the clarity of an architect who looks at a condemned building just before the demolition charges are set. There is no sentiment, only the clean, logical finality of the plan. When the operating room door closed, I realized that in this invisible war, she had declared the only way to win was not to fight. It was to refuse to play the game on her terms. We are so often taught that strength is in confrontation, in arguing your point, until you are hoarse in wrestling for victory. But there is a greater power, a quieter strength. It is the power of choosing not to engage. That is the art of the quiet exit. It is not the act of a loser, but the grand strategy of someone who has finally realized the game is no longer worth their energy. When I told Jennifer to follow her heart, back in that restaurant, I wasn't surrendering. I was disarming her. I was taking away her greatest weapon, the argument, the drama, the emotional chaos she craved and expected. By refusing to participate in her theater of betrayal, I rendered her monologue meaningless and shifted the entire focus to my next silent action. Here is the paradoxical truth in so many of life's battles: the only winning move is not to play. You simply calmly walk away from the chessboard, taking your king, your self-respect with you, and leave your opponent alone with the empty, meaningless board they themselves have created. I pulled out my phone. I scrolled to my lawyer's number. I pressed call. He answered on the first ring. "It's done," I said. My voice was steady even. "Are you sure, David?" He asked, a final chance to turn back. "She's in surgery." I paused, letting the weight of the moment hang in the air. "File the papers. Now." 2 hours later, Jennifer blinked her eyes open in the recovery room. The first thing she felt was the dull ache of the incision. The second was a surge of pure, unadulterated triumph. She had done it. Her future, the one she had designed and curated, was beginning. She looked around the room, expecting to see me sitting in the chair by her bed, holding flowers, ready to begin my new role as the supportive stepfather. But the chair was empty. Instead, a man she didn't recognize stood by the door. He was in a slightly wrinkled suit, holding a thick manila envelope. He walked over to her bed, his expression neutral, professional. "Jennifer Miller?" he asked. Her name was still Miller then. "Yes," she said, her voice groggy from the anesthesia. He placed the envelope on the rolling table that spanned her bed, right next to her cup of ice chips. "You've been served," he said, and then he turned and walked out of the room, leaving her alone with the architectural plans for the complete and total demolition of her life. My phone rang exactly 1 hour after I left the hospital. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I knew who it was. The caller ID should have said, "The Coming Storm." I answered and put it on speaker, letting the voice fill the empty space of my new sterile apartment. "Mr. Miller, my name is Arthur Vance. I represent your wife, Jennifer Miller." His voice was deep, practiced, the kind of voice that was used to intimidating people into submission. I have to say, in my 25 years of practicing family law, this is one of the most callous and predatory actions I have ever witnessed. Filing for divorce while your wife is under anesthesia, You should be ashamed. I sat down on a packing box. Hello, Arthur? He was taken aback by my calm. Don't hello, Arthur, me. This is not a friendly call. I am informing you that we are prepared to fight this to the fullest extent of the law. We will be seeking 50% of all marital assets. The house, the investment portfolios, the pension funds. We will also be filing for significant spousal support, citing extreme emotional distress. I took a slow sip of water. Okay. That's all you have to say. We're talking about millions of dollars, Mr. Miller. I know, I said. And you are welcome to 50% of what's in our joint checking account. As of this morning, I believe the balance is $5,212. I can have my bank wire you your half right now if you'd like. There was a pause, the first crack in his polished facade. Don't be cute with me, sir. We're talking about the marital home in Oakwood. Ah, the house, I said as if suddenly remembering it. Yes, a lovely property. Unfortunately, it's no longer a marital asset. What are you talking about? You bought it together. Actually, I bought it, and it is now owned by a private trust, a legal entity. It is not owned by me, nor is it owned by Jennifer. I could almost hear him scoff the sound of an experienced predator who thinks he's found a flaw in the trap. A revocable trust you set up last week. A judge will shred that to pieces in a heartbeat. It's a transparent attempt to hide assets. This was the moment, the checkmate. Not a revocable trust, Arthur. I said, my voice dropping into a lower, more deliberate register. An irrevocable trust, established and fully funded over a month ago, with meticulously documented assets that I acquired and grew through my own inheritance and premarital investments. The paper trail is flawless, the funding is clean, and the trust is legally impenetrable. I suggest you look it up. The silence on the other end of the line was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. It wasn't just the absence of noise. It was the sound of arrogance hitting a brick wall at 100 miles per hour. It was the sound of a shark realizing he's just tried to bite a submarine. I let it hang in the air for a full 10 seconds. Finally he spoke, but his voice was different. The booming confidence was gone, replaced by a thin, reedy uncertainty. The investment accounts, also in the trust, Arthur. Every last stock, every bond, every mutual fund. All of it legally shielded and beyond your client's reach. Jennifer made a choice. She chose a future with Mark. I have simply given her the freedom to pursue it without the burden of my assets. Her lawyer was silent, because he was a man who understood the finality of a well-executed plan. He knew the game was over. He knew what Jennifer was about to learn the hard way. Her entire world wasn't built on love or friendship, but on something far more fragile. She was about to experience the collapse of her brittle social capital. You see, there are two kinds of social currency in this world. There's bonding capital, the deep, authentic connections built on trust, loyalty, and genuine affection. It's the friend who will help you move on a Saturday, the family member who will listen without judgment. It's rare and it's strong as steel. Then there's bridging capital. This is the currency of networking, of appearances, of beneficial alliances. It's the vast, shallow network of people connected not by affection, but by utility. It's shiny, it's impressive, but it has the structural integrity of a spider's web. My social capital. What little I had was bonding capital, friends from college who knew my history, family, who valued my character. Jennifer's network, however, was a sprawling, glittering empire of bridging capital. Her best friends were the women who came to the lavish parties I paid for, who admired the expensive car I made the payments on, who saw her as a gateway to a certain lifestyle. They weren't her friends. They were accessories to her success, a success she had borrowed from me. They were connected to the house, to the vacations, to the brand of Jennifer Miller, successful man's wife. Her lawyer knew what would happen next. Those friends wouldn't betray her. That would imply loyalty existed in the first place. They would simply behave according to the unspoken terms of their relationship. When the benefits disappear, the connection is terminated. Jennifer was about to be downgraded from a social asset to a liability. Her phone calls would start going unanswered. Her brunch invitations would dry up. The world she had so carefully curated was about to shrink to the size of her own selfish choices. The house of cards was coming down, and it was a demolition of her own design. I had simply signed the permit. The aftermath was not a single explosive event. It was a slow, creeping decay, like a grand old house succumbing to rot from the inside out. Jennifer's world didn't just crack, it atomized. The first pillar to fall was Mark. He had been an enthusiastic partner in the fantasy, the romantic hero in her second-act romance. But fantasies are cheap. Reality has a cost. With her access to my finances severed, Jennifer's calls to Mark changed in tone. They were no longer the breathless whispers of a co-conspirator, but the demanding, panicked pleas of a creditor. She expected him to step into the role I had vacated to assume the financial responsibilities of her new life. She needed money for her lawyer. She needed money to find a new place to live since our house was now a legal fortress she couldn't enter. She needed money to maintain the lifestyle she felt was her birthright. Mark, the tech entrepreneur who leased Porsches for the weekend, was a man who understood assets and liabilities. He quickly realized that Jennifer, stripped of my financial backing, was no longer a valuable asset. She was a liability. He had been interested in the wife of a wealthy architect. He had zero interest in a 39-year-old unemployed divorcee with expensive tastes and a victim complex. Their phone calls became shorter. His texts became less frequent. 2 weeks after the surgery, he told her he needed to focus on his own life and wished her the best. He ghosted her. The great romantic hero of her story had simply written himself out of the script the moment it required him to actually pay for a ticket. Then her social world crumbled. The friends who had once listened with rapt attention to her tales of a progressive marriage now saw her for what she was: a cautionary tale. The invitations to brunch and charity galas stopped. Her phone, once a constant buzz of social validation, fell silent. She was no longer a status symbol. She was just another divorcee, and a broke one at that. She tried to spin a narrative of victimhood of a cruel husband who had abandoned her in her time of need. But the story was too absurd, her own entitlement too transparent. People listened politely, then slowly backed away. She was left stranded on the island of her own creation, a queen with no subjects and no kingdom. Meanwhile, my world was expanding, though it was happening in a much smaller space. I was in my new apartment. It was a one-bedroom rental, clean, modern, and gloriously empty. The silence was the first thing I noticed. For years, I had lived with the constant hum of Jennifer's needs, her dramas, her expectations. The silence in my new apartment wasn't empty. It was full. It was full of possibility. It was the sound of peace. I spent the first week doing simple things. I bought a coffee maker and a single, perfect ceramic mug. I sat by the large window that overlooked the city and just drank my coffee, watching the world wake up. There were no demands on my time, no passive-aggressive sighs to decipher, no financial fires to put out. There was just the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the gentle scent of freshly brewed coffee. It was the most profound luxury I had experienced in a decade. I am an architect. I build things. For 15 years, I had put my creative energy into building a life for Jennifer. Now, for the first time, I began to build a life for myself. I unpacked my drafting table and set it up by the window. I bought new pencils, new rolls of tracing paper. I started sketching not for a client, but for me. I designed a small cabin for a piece of land I dreamed of owning one day. I designed furniture. I filled pages with ideas that had been dormant for years, buried under the weight of Jennifer's endless wants. My life became a study in contrasts to hers. While she was desperately trying to salvage the wreckage of her social life, I was reconnecting with my two oldest friends, guys Jennifer had always dismissed as unambitious. We didn't go to fancy restaurants. We went to a ball game, ate hot dogs, and talked about things that were real. While she was losing her house, I was designing a new one. While her world was shrinking, mine was, for the first time in a long time, entirely my own. I wasn't just surviving the demolition. I was standing in the cleared lot, blueprints in hand, ready to build something true, something strong, something just for me. Last week, I unrolled the final blueprints for my new house on the drafting table that now dominates my living room. It's not a mansion. It's a modest, intelligent design with clean lines, large windows, and a foundation designed to sit perfectly on a small plot of land I'm closing on next month. It's a house for one for now, with the potential for more. It's a structure built not on compromise, but on clarity. As I looked at the intricate lines, the precise measurements, a thought struck me with the force of a revelation. For 15 years, I had a house. A big, beautiful, expensive house. But I never truly had a home. A house is a collection of spaces. A home is a collection of truths. The house I shared with Jennifer was beautiful on the outside, a masterpiece of curb appeal, but its internal architecture was a labyrinth of lies, of unspoken resentments, and divergent blueprints. I was building a fortress of stability while she was sketching an escape hatch. We were living in the same structure, but we were not living in the same home. The home I'm designing now, it's smaller, but its foundation is honesty. Its walls are built with self-respect. It's a place where the quiet is not a sign of emptiness, but a symptom of peace. Looking at the lines on the blueprint, a sudden question came to mind, a final test of my own conviction. What if revenge isn't sweet? What if after all that my plan had failed? What if the trust had been successfully challenged? What if I had lost half of everything I'd ever worked for? Would I regret my decision then? Would the act of leaving become a mistake in retrospect? The answer, I realized with absolute certainty, is no. We are so often blinded by what psychologists call outcome bias, the tendency to judge a decision based on its eventual result. We call a gamble brilliant if it pays off, and foolish if it fails, even if the decision-making process was identical. But the true value of the action I took was not in the millions of dollars I managed to protect. It lay in the singular, quiet moment in that hospital hallway, when I chose my own dignity over a toxic peace. The victory wasn't secured when her lawyer fell silent. It was secured the moment I walked away from that operating room door. The success of leaving a destructive situation is not measured by the balance in your bank account, but by the peace you reclaim for your own soul. The financial security is a bonus, a fortunate outcome of a sound strategy. But the true non-negotiable win was the act of protecting my own boundaries, of honoring my own worth. That victory of character happened the second I chose to step off her chessboard. The business success, the new house, that's just building on a site that has already been cleared and consecrated. It is the beautiful postscript to a story that was already finished. I have learned that the ultimate measure of a man is not what he provides for others, but the integrity of the life he builds for himself. And for the first time in a very long time, I feel like I am finally home.